Welcome to Guidance for Better Life. Today I have a friend of mine, Shannon Canine, who's going to share a true story of how God shared his light in a dream and how it changed her life and gave her hunger for drawing closer to God. So I hope you stay tuned. A lot of people, maybe not a lot, but people do experience God's light if he wants to share it while they're awake. But you may not know you can also experience God's light if he wills it while in a dream. So today might be interesting. So thanks for being here. Hi, Shanna.
Hi, Del.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Your story's Awakening, and it's in Prophet Shares God's Light. Do you remember the chapter?
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6. So you don't have to read much of the book, and you'll be right there. This is pretty short and sweet, but really profound.
Very profound, yeah.
You came up to our school, how many years ago? Was it 10, 15, 20? I don't know.
14 years ago.
14 years ago you came
June.
up to the school, yeah.
Yep.
And back then we did some wilderness things like wild edible plant classes. We just did the spiritual retreats for the last 15 or so years. But you came up to wild edible plant class. So before we get into the dream, maybe just start there. How'd that go for you?
It was great. I came up to the wild edible plants class, like you said, and it was just a weekend here in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains.
They are beautiful.
On this beautiful property. And I remember one of my first memories of being on the property and experiencing peace enter my heart, and which allowed me to really just enjoy the weekend and take in the beauty here.
Because you were living up in Northern Virginia at the time.
I was.
And you just moved recently from Colorado. We've done another show on that. And you had a lot going on and a lot of change.
I did.
So being up here in the woods, anytime you go off and camp and stuff or fish, but you felt something special and got to relax a bit.
I did. And it was even more than just like a regular relaxing where, you're taking a hike or a trail. There was something different about the peace that I experienced that really seemed to stir like something deeply spiritual within me.
Okay, not just a camping trip.
No, not just a camping
or
trip.
weekend fishing, something deeper.
Something deeper.
Okay, and you noticed it? I mean, it's something you were conscious of?
It's like a whisper. Like, no, it wasn't like a shout, but like a whisper.
Not a roar, just a little whisper in your heart.
It was.
Okay, cool. And then you left after a weekend, got to go home.
Yeah.
And in your story you said it's fairly soon after you were up here. I don't know how soon.
Probably within that first week after leaving the class. It was
all right, pretty quick.
Very quick.
Which ties the dream pretty much to the school, I think, in the story. It wasn't random. The timing was fairly quick after you'd been up here.
It was.
And I think the best thing is just share the dream, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay, I'd love to. So the dream was a very vivid dream to me. One that, you have and you wake up and it's just so real. I was flying.
Vivid as far as visuals.
Vivid as far as visuals and remembering it.
Oh,
It was, it had really just transpired.
Okay.
So I was flying down. It was a flying dream. Those are always fun.
That's fine.
So I was flying down your gravel road that leads to the house and the property here. And I kind of knew where I was. And as I came down towards the house, you and your wife, Lynn, were sitting outside on a bench. And as I came towards you, you both stood up. And all I could see was there was this beautiful, like, stunning white light shining, like, from you and Lynn, like, all around you and towards me. And it was just, I think I had written it would be too much for physical eyes, but through the eyes of soul, it was actually very welcoming and nurturing.
Yeah.
And the only thing in the dream, I said, well, I don't know why I'm here.
Remember that, yeah. What am I doing?
I don't know why I'm here. And you said, well, we're glad that you came.
Yeah.
And what I later learned really, I don't know how much but it really was the light of God I saw shining through you and Lynn.
Yes, God can, if he chooses, he can choose anybody to share his light through somebody. In this case, and you've been up here for many years since, where you've had God directly, with nothing in between, share light, his light and love with you. In this case, he chose to share it through Lynn and I. That was his choice. Why, now that you've had more experience, why did it not come directly It didn't say in the story, actually, and I hadn't thought about asking this question. Why do you think God shed, it was his light, not Lynn and I, it was his light that he chose to shine through us. Why do you think he chose that way in this dream to share his light with you?
Because for me, it spoke to me of, before even coming to the Wild Edible Plants class, I had a prayer in my heart, or a prayer that I even said out loud. I was looking for my spiritual teacher.
Okay.
And having the peace that I experienced during that
I
Wild
didn't
Edible
know that
Plants
in the
class.
story. It's not in the story.
No, it's not in the story.
Okay.
And I was searching. And for me, that was a recognition of helping me wake up and recognizing that my prayer is being answered and I have a spiritual teacher.
So because he shared his light, God's light, through Lynn and I,
Yes.
and we welcomed you to the property, was that, and that was not in the story clear. Thanks for sharing that. You felt that was a confirmation that something was right, that for this place to be your place of teaching.
Yes.
And me as a teacher, and Lynn's also a teacher.
Yes.
Well, that's neat. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Sorry, I felt like, for me, my experience was like I had this ember glowing in my heart. And coming up here that first weekend at the Wild Edible Plants class and experiencing the peace, and there's just something special. And then the dream, it was like the light of God coming from you and Lynn, and the love, and that ignited that.
Okay, it's like you had a little coal. You're saying you had like an ember, a coal in your heart for God,
Yes.
for a relationship with the divine. And when you came up here and felt the property and the peace up here, it kind of, they put air on it a little bit, adding like blowing on an ember, and then the dream blew on it some more.
It did, like the breath of God, bringing that to life, and that helped awaken me, like a spiritual awakening. Like
you call your story an awakening.
It is.
And it seemed like in the story, and after what you just shared, that got you really on. Was that when you really got planted on being serious about a relationship with God?
Yes.
It was in there, but kind of subtle. And some of your other stories when you were a child, a little girl, and I hope we get to share those someday, you'd pray to God for things, but it was more subtle, and that it was time. So are you saying God felt you found the teacher that was right for you, maybe not for everybody, this was the right place to come, and that was the right time in your life?
It was.
And it kind of blew that little ember into a little flame, or a big flame, I don't know.
God did, indeed.
How's it gone? How long ago was that?
It was 14 years ago. This June, it'll be 14 years ago.
So your story, you say it was an awakening, like you started waking up.
I did.
You started putting God a higher priority in your life. So how did it go for the last 14, 15 years? Did you kind of decide to take a rest, or have you continued on that?
I've continued on it. It's been transformational for my life in beautiful and abundant ways.
Okay.
It's helped me, like in that awakening, I realized there's so much more than this physical body for me as soul.
Yeah.
Beginning to accept my own divinity, and the teachings that you have shared with me over these past 14 years have helped me to accept my divinity, to learn what it means to make God a reality in my life by recognizing His love in my life and His blessings, very personal experiences that, in doing that, really just shows me God's presence in my life.
And He does love you a whole lot.
And
you felt this story was when it really started flowing for you.
I did.
It was like a catalyst. The weekend up here, and then that dream that was so vivid, as you said.
Very much so.
Wow. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
There is that the light of God, I feel like there's so much in that gift, in that love. And in this experience, it was an awakening and helping me recognize my teacher and the blessing. And other times it's been healings. It's just so profound and so amazing. And I cherish it.
Well, since you mentioned that, a lot of folks may or may not know, when you've experienced God's light like that, inside that light is anything we could ever want. It might be mostly a feeling of a love. He might shed the light, and within the light there's peace, maybe clarity, which you receive some clarity, that this was the right place for you to continue growing. anything we would ever want that God wants to bless us with, he delivers through his light. So it's not just like light here in the studio. It's light with everything you can imagine within that light. And if you needed, say, clarity, that was the right time to get started, we'd get that. If you needed a bunch of love and peace or comfort, whatever it is, or joy maybe, if you're lacking joy, he can share that with you through his light. That's what you're saying. I was not going to cover that in the interview, but thank you so much for bringing it up, because you got your flame was you got the blue light, blew onto the coal, but you also got confirmation it's time to get going on your journey, and that you had the right place to start. Yes. Thank you, Shanna, for coming today and sharing your beautiful story.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope everyone out there someday in some way will experience God's light. Like we said, it contains love, joy, peace, clarity, whatever. And I pray you all get the chance to experience something personal, maybe not Shanna's story, but something personal where you know you're going in the right direction towards building your relationship with God, and you know he loves you so much. I hope this blessed you. Thank you.